Took them all college, still didn't learn anything. Actually, I didn't take them all college.
Hey, guys.
Quit doing them. Good morning. Now, I guess you don't have to. My God, they got, my nieces are at Virginia. They got pens that will record.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, pen like this.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
and you just cut it on and you can set it on the thing there and it records the professor.
Yep.
It's like, holy smokes.
You can plug it in later and it'll turn it into text for you. Dictate it.
Oh my goodness, what's from it?
You know, almost a little too. I mean,
It's
what
just-
more
it's
even
just-
going? What-
It's just gonna
Exactly.
get more, I mean, it's just gonna,
You just need one
progress.
person with a pen to go for you.
Yeah, pretty much. 10 years, we'll just plug a little thing into the side of our head.
Yeah, that
download
would
what we
be,
need.
yeah, probably.
so I guess they're just gonna hold on to it for like 24 hours and see who else comes through. And
Probably. Yeah, probably.
are you people willing to go up more?
I don't know, and you know, I'm not know how much you go up on now, it's 325.
Yeah.
Good morning.
I mean, I guess,
You all were hustling last week during our class. You all had something that Michael said you were working on?
Oh, yeah, listing on Louisa.
Well,
Work?
we haven't, no, we haven't nailed
It's
it yet.
still in progress.
Well, it's better than not in progress.
Exactly, yeah, it's still in the works. It's
If I didn't have in progress, I would have it nothing. My life is in progress.
exactly, it's everything in progress, it's sort of a,
Well, that's good though.
yeah, so we'll see what happens with it.
So Brad was just gonna check with her to,
Yeah, he got right back to me, which, here's old Brad, I was sitting, my neighbor was texting me last night, he let the dog out, I had Virginia texting me, I was texting Brad. Let's see, here's Brad right here. I said to him that Logan and I spoke with Dan today and set up a visit next Monday to have two other agents from over here evaluate properties as you keep moving in terms of square footage. I think you mentioned an appraisal had been done, and so that would include the square footage. You did provide that to us. And he said, Jan had the appraisal. I said, thank you. Sure, his address. Yeah.
that's the most accurate you can get.
It's the most accurate for her, because she doesn't have a previous MLS.
Exactly.
I don't
And
know.
it's more accurate than we
You
would
know, with
be.
her, it's a little hard to tell if it's intentional to just,
Mhm.
or if she just really, you know.
She's just determined.
Yeah.
Determined.
I mean, but if you wanted to prove us wrong, you would just whip out the, appraisal. and go,
Right.
Here's the appraisal.
Right.
Okay,
Fine.
yeah, whatever, I mean, it's
It's
still,
not the change numbers and it's making it even harder because it's bigger.
in a way, I mean, you know, it's, yeah, I mean, no, who knows? I mean, certainly we could have looked at Thompson on there, I guess.
No, no, we haven't even looking at over.
She had looking at what we showed her. True. Not if she had said to
There wouldn't
her,
have been anything
pull them
else
the way you would
that's-
pull them, here's the address.
Yeah,
So maybe more experienced people can pull them differently and come up with something. But still, common sense would say you can't get 600 for that.
Mhm, mhm.
You
you can ask it all day long.
You can ask anything
But
you
it's
want.
gonna, right. So how did you do filling out your,
Well, I was here, Jonas was upstairs helping me.
Uh-huh.
Michael came in, I schooled him a little on the new form. I mean, it was usual.
He got me good. I had no idea.
Neither did we. I didn't even know it was different.
Yeah.
Jonas said, that's different. Wait a
how
minute.
new?
No, just they
Yesterday.
I mean, it changed.
Yeah,
Yesterday.
literally.
Effective-
Day before
effective-
yesterday.
Yeah, effective 7/1.
So it literally
So what was
just
the
changed.
change?
It was the home inspection and
There's now, for information purposes only, the regular way, and then it has a place for additional comments.
yeah. So, I mean, to me, I didn't even know it had changed, but you want to do it, you know, just like that.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to get through these last two in this section, but I also have a couple things. One, which came up again last night. Remember with the, exclusive authorization to sell agreement, you've got the, got one copy here. You got it right there. You guys can look alongside each other. We went through this last week, and we'll pick this up depending on how long these are. One's pretty long. This is like a 14-minute one. But the one thing I just wanted to start up with is in regards to the commission, the compensation. I'm so grateful for you guys taking the time to come into these because, experienced agents don't even understand the forms. And I got an email last night in regards to compensation, and an agent has both sides of the transaction, which is awesome. Unrepresented party, she represents the seller, made it clear to the buyer that they're unrepresented, but she's doing ministerial acts for them. And question came up about the compensation. Since it's unrepresented, does that mean that the commission gets reduced? And it has nothing to do with the fact that they're unrepresented. When you look at compensation as broker's fee, we talked about this last week, broker's fee 6%. Mm-hmm. All paragraph B is about is first policy regarding cooperating with and compensating other real estate licensees. Owner authorizes broker to cooperate with and compensate other brokers via the following, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't say anything about if there isn't one. The sellers agreed to 6%. We're agreeing out of that 6% that we're going to give 3% out to another agent if they bring us a buyer. But if they don't, if we bring them or whatever, then the commission stays the same unless you have something in writing that states something differently. Sometimes you'll see people say, if I bring the buyer, I'll reduce it to 5%, or, but it has to be in the agreement. Well, so anyway, it was just interesting because it was an agent that has, has been around for a good long while, and yet they didn't.
Asked by the seller?
Mm-hmm. The seller wanted to know, and it wasn't her client, it was somebody else. They were asking in regards to somebody else. So anyway, and that's the other important part is when it's unrepresented, then they're unrepresented, which means they don't have representation. They have to make sure, hey, Catherine, you have to make sure that that buyer knows that they're unrepresented, and you have to stay 100% focused on representing your seller. You can provide ministerial acts to your to the buyer. You can write the contract. You can provide them comps. You can, tell them about who good home inspectors, lenders, all those things are all. And again, the best way of remembering this is when you're giving information, that's ministerial. But if you start to give advice, you're crossing the line. If you're giving advice, you've probably gone beyond what your capacity is in regards to helping somebody that's unrepresented. Does that make sense? Okay. And we'll talk more about that, but let's watch this guy. This one is 14 minutes long, so a little bit longer than others. And I'm not sure about the last one. We'll figure that out if I can figure it out without bringing Chris in again.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Ells with the Training Academy. I want to welcome you to today's lesson on the listing success plan. But more specifically, we're going to get into presentation technique and delivering a value proposition. So first things first,
How do I
to
turn
win
this up?
a listing in today's
No, I got that one. It's full.
competitive environment where it's
No,
not a
go down
referral,
lower.
you must be able to
To the
convey
right.
Oh.
value. Meaning you have to be able to convey that
Yeah, I got it.
differentiation of what you
Thank
bring
you.
to the table that is better than others. But for that to occur, the seller has to listen, has to receive that information. Now, the question I always like to ask is, why don't people listen to us? And if you've ever been on a presentation or an appointment where they say, let me think about it, most of the time, that's the fault of the salesperson. We've created an environment where they stop listening. So we got to make sure that people listen. So why don't they listen? Well, I call it polyphasic thinking. What that means is the human brain has the ability to have multiple things going on while looking at someone and nodding their head. We've all done it. I call it arguing with your mouth shut or having your own conversation. If you get into that polyphasic thought and the salesperson is presenting the differentiation, you don't hear it. You'll nod, but you don't hear it. And then when we get to the point of decision, and I go, can we go to work for you? They try to look back to see, is there a reason to work with this person? And it's cluttered. So you get the, I'm going to need to think about it. Now, Galileo, the astronomer and philosopher from the 1600s, gave us this quote, and he cracked the code a long time ago. You can't teach a person anything. You can only help them discover it within themselves. Now, what Galileo was trying to get us to understand is when we preach or talk at people, they stop listening because we can't teach them things. We have to help them discover things. So when I tell somebody something or preach something, what has to happen is they have to believe in me, trust me, and I have to stay within their belief system and not cross any lines of their expectations. As soon as I do something that's a little off, the brain goes off and has its own conversation. But what Galileo said is if we help them discover it within themselves, they'll stay with you. So how do we do that? Well, first we have to avoid feature dumping. Now, this is what many salespeople in many industries do. You get a lot of marketing materials, you get excited about what you have, or you're fearful about the presentation. So you just go on and on with feature after feature. Another thing we can do here is this, and at my office we do this, and I'm all about this, and I belong to this, and I've done this. Those long feature dumps create polyphasic thought. So we have to avoid that. We have to get into where we are going to convey value, not dump features. So how do we cure this? Never forget these things. First and foremost, I have to train myself and break the bad habit of preaching. So I have to ask more than I tell. Listen more than I talk. So if I'm asking questions, the brain can't help but to engage. If I ask you a question, what's your favorite color? You're going to stop and think. But if I tell you all about what my favorite color is, you might wander off on your own thoughts. Ask more than we tell. Now, if we get in the habit of asking more than we tell, now we have to listen. We can't just be ready to talk again. We have to listen more than we talk because the input we're getting will position our value proposition. I always like to say, don't be the smartest person in the room. When we go in there and we feel we need to be the smart person in the room, that person always wants to prove they're smart by talking. So if you'll take a step back and want to learn instead of tell, you'll be better at this technique. That puts us in the position to start leveraging winning differences, how we differentiate ourselves, instead of feature dumping them. Now, this takes longer. It takes longer to ask someone 5 questions to get them to discover why we're the best agent than say one statement telling them we're the best agent. It takes longer. But when we ask, it prevents polyphasic thinking. And it will reduce you getting, I want to think about it. So it's critical that we master these types of techniques. So in delivering that value proposition, we're going to keep Galileo in mind. So let me give you the elements of a value proposition. The first thing is, and this is the hard one, is you have to take each and every product and service that you can offer. From your organization and from leading LRE, all of those products and services have to be understood. Once you understand the product or the service, the next thing you have to do is define how does it differentiate you? How does this differentiate you from the competition? After that, you have to dig a little deeper and list what are the benefits of this product or service to the consumer, the seller. How does this product or service benefit the seller, not you as an agent? And then it gets even harder to do this right because you have to define what problems will it solve that the typical seller runs into. So I have to know, on average, sellers have these problems when they sell their home, and this product or service solves that problem. And then the last one is, what pain will it remove? From a bad experience or from something that can occur during the process of a listing? What pain will doing business with me using this product or service be eliminated? So that's the beginning. This is something you have to sit down and really drill down on and take notes. Can't be in your head. You have to take a product or a service, make those notes. Now, once we've done that, now we can deliver a value proposition when we are in front of a customer. Now, delivering a value proposition has 3 parts to it. The first part I call discovery. So when I turn to a page and I have a product, a visual presentation, I have a product I'm about to present, and I want to do a value proposition instead of a feature dump, I start by asking a question. I have to either uncover the need that it takes care of, or I need to uncover the pain that the seller might feel. Basically, what I have to do is get the seller to get top of mind with the challenge, problem, or pain that could happen while they're on the market. So once I bring that top of mind, now the brain's going, yeah, this could go wrong, or, I am concerned about that. And then I move into part two, which is propose a solution, not feature dump a solution. So to propose a solution, after they're going, yeah, I can see how that might happen, or that's happened before to me, now I can say, if you could have, or if it was possible to, or in some instances, I might actually just demonstrate it if it's technology or something. I'll demonstrate it to them for them to get the wow. But I'm not going to feature dump it. I'm going to say, if you could, or if I could do for you, what would you think? Or what would that do for you while you're on the market? It's a second question, but proposing the solution. And then the third part is close. But now we're only going to close if they see value. Now I'm going to demonstrate something in a little bit, but I want to give you another example if I could right now. Leading RE has a massive relocation reach across the globe. You guys know this. So I know that when I sit down and I present to a seller and they say they're moving somewhere else, I have the ability through that network to find the very best top of the line agent to work with my client moving into that new marketplace. So I'm excited about it. Well, here's the problem. Let's say you go on a listing appointment and the customer says, hey, we're going to be moving to, I'm going to say Nashville. And I'm excited. So I want to say, well, I'll be able to take care of you in Nashville because part of leading real estate companies of the world is an exclusive group of top professionals that I can find you someone that can make you comfortable. That would be feature dumping. And it might not fit. But if I do it differently, if I follow these 3 points, first one, discovery questions. So watch this. So Mr. Smith, you said you'll be moving to Nashville. Yeah, that's where we're headed. Awesome. Have you found it challenging at all to learn about the Nashville area? Maybe finding special homes to look at or lifestyle things to check out? Has that been a challenge for you at all? Now, there's my discovery question. They come back and say this, oh no, we're in good shape there. Our daughter-in-law is a real estate agent in Nashville. Now all of a sudden, I've got this great value proposition that has no value to them because they have a daughter-in-law who's in the business. So instead of me feature dumping all of that stuff, which would have caused them to polyphasic think because they didn't have a need, I would have lost them, maybe lost the deal because I was too excited to dump something instead of discover. This way, I've discovered that this has no value. I will move on to the next product or the next service and not even get into it because they're taken care of there. If there is value, though, I might trial close. Well, if I could provide a professional that lives in Nashville, would you be interested in talking to them? Or I might go with a final close. If I can provide that type of professional like myself in Nashville, can we get together as a team and go to work tonight? I might go for a final close. But if there's no value, I can get out of it without looking silly to talk about something that doesn't matter. So those are the 3 areas of a value proposition. And what I want to do now is give you one more example. So let me set the stage. You're on a listing appointment. You have greeted them, sat them at the table, you've built some rapport, and you've broken into and explained to you how I work. You've given them your agenda visually so they know exactly how the appointment's going to go. You've asked the discovery questions of why are you selling, where are you going, and all of those intimate questions so you really understand them. You've gone into your marketing action plan by explaining how you're going to get local exposure and get people locally to understand their home is available. But now you need to go beyond local. So that's where I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up going into reaching beyond the borders. So I'm going to kind of role play with myself. This is what I do on stage a lot. So let's see if I can pull this off for you, okay? So again, we're going to be starting, coming out of local exposure, moving forward. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, do you feel with what I've just shared with you that we can effectively reach the local market for you? And they come back and say, yeah, it sounds great. But you know, the local market isn't everything. It's only part of the marketplace. And we're not just local, we're also global. Let me ask you a question. Who would you prefer purchase your home? Somebody local here or someone from out of town? Now, I'll ask that question to lead into this. And what I always hear back from them is the following. Dan, we really don't care. So right now, there's no value in an out-of-town buyer. So I'm going to ask a few more questions. So Dan, we really don't care. Well, let me ask it this way. When we were talking, are you looking for someone that's ready to go, is not going to mess around, act quickly? Well, yeah. Have a smoother transaction and maybe haggle less when it comes to negotiating and pricing? Yeah. Well, then let me ask it this way. Between a local buyer who might have a house to sell or maybe still in a rental position, knowing the area, or someone out of town that's probably already sold their home and coming here specifically to buy a house, which one do you think is going to give you the experience you're looking for? That local buyer or the out of town buyer? And then they come back and always say to me, well, now that you say it that way, well, the out of town buyer, I think, would be the one more likely to act quicker and need to buy a home. Then I come back and say, you know, I agree with you. Just reaching the local market doesn't give us sometimes the best buyer out there. So I'd like to ask one favor of you. Regardless who you do business with in listing your home, please make sure you go with a company that can reach beyond the borders. Is that okay with you? And they always come back and say yes. And I go, may I share with you how we reach beyond the borders? They say yes. Well, we're a member of leading real estate companies of the world. And now I get to talk. It's not feature dumping. I get to talk about the strength of leading real estate companies of the world, of the reach of leading real estate companies of the world, all over the place. And then I can come back and then ask, tying back in, do you feel with our affiliation with leading real estate companies of the world and our local marketing that we can give you 100% of the market? And they look at you and go, yes. Well, then go into a close, guys. Shall we go ahead and get started? Now, that's just a simple example for you. I was trying to get you to feel what it is like to ask, not tell. So I hope this can help you the next time you're in front of a seller making that value proposition. So until next time, I'm Dan Elzer with the Training Academy.
Let's see here. That one gave us a lot of really good information, I think. Couple things that jumped out at me. Well, let's take this test, and don't forget, you know, Catherine, who's watching, other folks who are watching, go in and sign into the Institute on your own, and then take this to go through and just fast forward through and take the test, so you're getting credit for the classes, but because it's obviously signed in under me. Sharing a list of all the services you and your company offer is called. You don't think that's I don't think so. I think it's a value prop presentation because you're providing everything. I think you're getting into an objection handling scenario maybe too
But
quickly.
he said you ought to discover the value prop, like for instance, if you started launching into how you had connections in Nashville.
Right.
And a person.
Right.
Then they would say that's.
But I think what you're doing is you're sharing it and you're getting to a place where you leave something out. Well, this is my class, so I'm going to say value prop. Not that I'm trying to act smarter than everybody else, like Dan was talking about. We'll see what happens. And by the way, Catherine, John Green, one of our new agents, let me know that there's a brand new home inspection contingency that became effective July 1st. So
Because Jonah told me.
yeah, thanks to Yona.
July 1st, a lot of things change.
Okay, here you go. You can avoid feature dumping by
Oh,
both, okay? Please let us have gotten all three right. Please, feature dumping takes more time than asking questions to discover the seller's needs.
false.
Feature dumping takes more time.
False. He said, you remember that it
Feature
takes
dumping takes
longer to
Well, it
ask.
causes-
That's right,
ask
well,
it.
because if you ask questions, you
Yeah.
don't, there's things you don't have, so we're gonna say false.
You're polyphasic. Thank you.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right. So we're gonna say false. Okay. Yes. Oh, we missed
you
the,
missed it.
dang it.
So,
Ah,
Question
all right,
number
so
one.
what was the question for number
So
one?
it's Teacher dumping.
Teacher dumping. All right.
So that's 2 things in 2 days.
Yeah, 2 things in 2 days. That's good. Being humbled is a good thing. Another way of thinking about polyphasic thinking is what I've talked about with you guys in the past about safe islanding. And safe islanding is going through the process. This is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And hopefully that trial close would be, and if everything is to your liking, hopefully we can get started. But the process, and then the safe island is, he even talked about it, but he talked about it differently in regards to the whole aspect of when somebody is polyphasic thinking, and then I want to think about it. Okay, well, where did I get off track? What is there to think about? Let's go back. You were nodding your head up to this point. What caused you to stop nodding your head? So you take them back to where they were comfortable. And maybe it's, the fact that you're not advertising it in a certain place, or you didn't talk about the online marketing well enough, or it's commission, or whatever it might be, right? And you say, fine, you take it back, okay, we're good here, so let's go back to there, and let's then be able to move forward. The other thing that I thought about when he was talking was that old show, Columbo. Columbo did exactly what he talked about the whole way through. The Columbo technique was asking lots of questions to finally get somebody to admit that they slipped up, and they admit that they did something. And it was all about he'd be walking out of the room, and he'd stop again with that little cigar and say, I want more question, kind of thing. And it's that same thing. It's that aspect of really just asking questions and getting down to where it is you really want them to go. I like that, he talked about the dumping, but I like the discovering versus the dumping. Really understanding where they're coming from. Really look, for what are their hot buttons. I mean, John Logan, this woman is so, what's the right word? Just so narrow-minded in her, I want to know the room sizes. You gotta, the square footage has to be wrong. She's so, sort of focused in one place that she's not seeing the whole picture, right? And I think the way you guys are handling that is absolutely right. Well, if that's something that she's fixed on, let's get her off of it. And I would disagree with him a little bit as it related to I liked what he did with the leading RE stuff, but I would have liked to see him stay with all the buyers. Not that the out-of-town buyers are better versus the in-town buyers, because I'm not really sure that's true. But don't you want to make sure you get access to all the buyers? There may be a local buyer, but man, wouldn't it be great if we really are finding anybody that's coming to this area?
What's the advantage of excluding somebody?
Right, exactly. So I would have, in the language there, if you took notes, I would say, that we want to get access. Don't you agree that you want to make sure that we get as many buyers into your home as possible, whether they're from here or coming in from out of the area? You certainly can talk about they may have their house sold and blah, blah, but, and you're going to get that same nod. You're going to say, yeah, we want to cast that net out as wide and as far as we can. The other thing I just thought about, and I'm going to get Chris to work into the things that we provide you so that you can, when you're talking about marketing, right now, if you look at the Daily Progress on Sundays, we oftentimes are the only company that's in there in the real estate section with our full or half-page ad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a couple of those out so that when you're talking to people about marketing and be able to show them a sample of that, of, hey, just as an example of what's going on locally, here we are each and every week, and here, and the other companies you may be talking about, they don't have the same exposure we do. Now, they may be doing other things, and they may be doing them quite well. But the point being is we want to use what we're doing to our benefit and to create, again, a differentiator, from a standpoint of local marketing. So the other thing I'm going to do is talk to Chris about, and I think Chris is still on, but is we're going to talk about creating a one-pager on these 5 things: understanding your product, differentiators, benefits, what problems will it solve, what discomfort will it be, will it remove. We'll create something that he can take what we're doing and what we're offering, and he can, put those in there so that you'll have that as sort of an outline to go through.
You know if they do, because I haven't stayed there, I don't live here. Do you know if like the Boar's Head, do they give the Daily Progress on weekends if they're staying there?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think the Daily Progress,
USA Today.
USA Today is oftentimes in there, yeah.
They do the progress too.
Because that would be, that's your out-of-town market.
Yeah. The other thing too, just so you know, is, here I go again, losing where I'm going. Chris,
Weekly too.
is Chris and I are doing a, let me go get him. I don't know why I can't do that. Chris and I are doing a thing where we're going out to the different hotels. The two of us are split up the hotels, and we've got a handout. We're going to put down to give to people who ask.
Cool. Yeah, I know the publisher there, I haven't talked to him, but he's no longer the publisher there. He was only there for about 2 years.
Rob,
Rob, yeah.
you in?
He went to business school with my wife, ex-wife. So, known him for a while. Do you know any of the?
No,
And I also saw that you got rid of the sports guy.
yeah, Jerry Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, when did that happen?
Same
In the
time we got
last-
rid of
Okay, I
Rob.
last
haven't
month and
seen
a half.
that.
All right, let's see here if I can figure out. Oh, here we go.
It was on the Saber, I know that.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Both
Rob,
Geronica and Radcliffe both leaving.
Yeah.
Daily Progress.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, Jerry just announced, wonder which one we just watched. Was it, well, no, we should
We
know.
just.
Oh, here it is.
Because I've seen,
Here it is.
We watched the 14-minute one.
Yeah,
Right above it up
yeah.
there.
So let's go to offers and counter offers. If I can get us in here.
I don't even think I've seen this.
How'd you get-
Yeah.
Because this wasn't in on that.
Oh.
I started watching some that weren't even on the thing, but.
Outside the
I
line.
think I'm a diploma and I didn't attend every class.
The interesting thing is Jerry is opening up his own webpage.
Yeah, I saw that.
And,
Oh, wow.
and Chris and I met with him. Chris and I met with him the other day, and I'm thinking that there's a very good chance we're going to be one of the
Good.
premier sponsors of that, because
Oh, cool.
he's getting, it's amazing how much traffic he's gotten just in 2 or 3 days.
Oh, sure.
He posted a thing on Joe Harris, signing with the Nets for 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Had over 1,000 or 5,000 people go to, read it
Wow.
in just like 2 or 3 days.
Did
So.
he leave or was he kind of?
No, he was pushed out.
He was pushed out.
Both he and Rob, both. It was
I knew Rob.
finances.
Yeah.
All right. Chris is so impressed that I did this on my own.
We are.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Elzer with Training Academy. I want to welcome you to today's lesson on contract negotiation. But more specifically, we're going to take a look at offers and counteroffers when it comes to the seller. Let's go over some goals. First, we want to make sure that we educate the seller on the actual offer and counteroffer process. Second, we want to make sure that we present and explain the offer in detail. Next, provide a net sheet if you do net sheets, or the results of the offer so they can see what their bottom line is. And then we need to get a decision from the seller. And if they reject it, we got to be able to come back with a counter that's realistic. Today we have Julio from Watson Realty doing the role play with the seller on an offer that he's presenting. Let's take a look.
Judy, I'm very excited. We received an offer on your home.
Wow, already?
Yes. So I want to go over the offer with you. And I want to also explain the 3 options that you have. You can accept the offer, which I will go back to the other agent, let them know, and then we will get under contract. You can reject the offer, or you can counter the offer.
All right.
Let's keep in mind that a counter offer is a rejection with a new offer.
Not too bad. He did a great job there. Now, when I talked about being able to educate them on the process, what I'm getting to is what Julio just did. There are only 3 things that can happen with an offer. It can be accepted, rejected, or countered. When you educate the seller on those 3 choices, it actually empowers them and helps them make a better, more informed decision as they move forward. Next, we're going to have to present that offer. When we present an offer, the first thing that I want to make sure that all of you are doing is understanding your contracts and addendums. You've got to know it inside and out if you're going to sit before a seller. Secondly, only present what's within the offer. There's a term, stay within the four corners of the contract. Many times you can get sidetracked talking about things that are not part of an offer. You never want to discuss anything that's not in writing in front of you on that offer when you're presenting. I like to inform my customer to please hold their questions until I'm done with the full presentation. Then again, prepare a net sheet for them with the price and terms from the offer you just presented, and close them. Get a commitment. Don't let it kind of wander. When you get to the end, you have to close and find out, are they going to accept or reject?
Okay, let's go over the offer together. So here's the net sheet I prepared based on the terms of this contract. It's a purchase price of $190,000,
Okay.
and this is how much you will net.
Oh,
If this is is this a number you can live with?
no, I need more than that.
Okay.
Well, Julio did a great job of presenting it, but did you see the look on the seller's face? It was like, ooh, no. He actually closed. Can you live with that offer? And her response was no. So now he has to deal with someone who is resisting or rejecting an offer. So when you get that rejection or resistance to that offer, there's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. First, does the seller understand the market value? You could be sitting there with a perfect offer, a great offer when it comes to the actual market value of the property. But the emotion of the seller is keeping them from accepting it because they're like, no, I just feel my house is worth more. So we got to make sure that the seller truly understands market value.
I'm good.
So we want to review the most
I did
recent
that once, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
probably
I
a
did.
month or so
See, you
ago.
got some help
I got
there.
some, I got mine.
presentation
Training.
to a seller of an offer.
There
Bring the most recent
Must be
comps
working
to
hard.
help them review.
Hardly working.
Get them involved while you're doing this.
Catherine to Catherine.
Oh, nice to
You
meet
should do
you.
with a K instead.
Oh, with a K.
See, I'm an older Catherine.
It's going to help
You
them
with a C.
see the most recent
One of them
sales.
started
Yeah,
changing
right.
their names.
Wait a minute, is
In
that-
the end, it will help them if they don't accept that offer after seeing the actual market value. It will help them with getting a more realistic counteroffer to go back to the buyer. So let's take a look as Julio tries to educate the seller on market value and get a counteroffer.
We take a look at the
Whoever's listening, if you could mute, that would be great.
and we'll see what the market is telling us.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you if you can please highlight the ones that are more comparable to your home.
Okay.
The same concept he used when they did the listing presentation.
I think this one. What do you think?
Yeah, that's so. We have three comps. So Judy, based on the comps that you selected, we have a house in Oak Hill for $191,000. We have the one in Meadow Cove for $192,000, and the house on Rose Street for $210,000. So based on these numbers, where do you think we should be at?
Well, you know, we put a lot of money into our house and did a lot of upgrades, so I really think ours is better than any of these. Maybe like 215.
Okay, I understand you wanted 215, but let me switch things a little bit. Let's put yourself into the buyer's shoes. So if you were the buyer and you're looking at these numbers, will you pay 215?
Well, maybe not 215, but I know I'm better than any of these, so at least 212. I think 212.
Okay, so also we have to keep in mind what the appraiser would do. So if the appraiser is looking at these numbers, can he justify the higher price looking at these comps?
Well, again, we put a lot of money and upgrades into our house, but maybe we could look with 210.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I'll prepare the counter offer.
Well, Julio had some challenges there with the seller accepting value. Now, this is a role play situation. Please do not get hung up on the numbers that they used. I want you to look at the techniques. We have a seller that chose a number way out of the actual value range of the comps. Now think again, if the seller counters back in a manner that is outside of the comps that are there, and the buyer has been looking at the comps, we start to have that emotional problem in this negotiation that usually ends up with a deal falling apart. But making sure the seller is informed and educated helps us get them to be more realistic. But this seller still, because we have a lot of money invested in this house, was having a hard time with value. So that's the power of questions. Julio started to ask her questions, putting her in the other person's shoes. If you were the buyer, would you pay it? She moved a little bit. But then I thought it was excellent. He brought up the appraiser, because you don't want to do all of this for the deal not to go through. And when she looked at the appraiser's perspective, she came back with a more realistic counteroffer. Again, don't get focused on the numbers, get focused on the technique. So the power of questions, make sure that you ask questions, not tell them that they're wrong. This helps people learn. Questions causes your brain to engage. You cannot ignore someone when they ask you a question. It also reduces the resistance that they'll have to doing the right thing. Because once in their mind they see this probably won't work if I don't get more realistic, then they can accept that and move forward. So the results of following good technique when it comes to offers and counteroffers, you end up first with an educated seller. They truly understand the market value. They really know what's going on. It improves your conversion rate when you're presenting to somebody. You'll get many more deals accepted and better and more realistic counters. It keeps the parties engaged, which means that counteroffer going back has some support behind it. Therefore, the buyer can understand why the seller's there, so they'll be more apt to stay in the game. And in the end, creates a smoother transaction, because when our price is right and everyone agrees, things just happen to move much smoother. So I hope this helps you when it comes to dealing with people on offers and counteroffers. Until next time, I'm Dan Elzer with the Training Academy.
Okay, so a couple things to explain what you were thinking.
Well, it looked a little odd to me that at the point which you get an offer on your place, he's back trying to tell her how they came up with what she wanted to sell it for. She at some point had to see those comps and say, yeah, I get it, and we'll put the house on the market for
Right.
He was reacting versus kind of having her go along.
I mean, I guess.
Well, but
As you go
that's a
back
great,
over how we got here.
it's a great point, because what I said to John was, you remember in the earlier getting the listing, they used this technique, which is really good. They used, remember, the actives, the pendings, and the solds, and they had them lined up. And then they said, which one looks most like yours in active? Which one looks most like yours in pending? Look, which ones look most like yours sold? Oh, and then expires.
Right.
And obviously the ones that were overpriced were in the expired category. And so you're right, they should have gone through this, use the appraiser technique just to get to the right price.
Begin with.
Right.
I could see this
Show 'em
being
where
a,
those-
let me remind you
Right.
how we got here. Remember, we looked at these properties
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
And
Good.
use it as a
Great.
reminder to her instead of,
Great point.
you
Yeah.
know, go back.
Totally.
And that would be the time to discuss the net thing. For instance,
Yep.
that house that sold for X,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and then this is a question for you that sold one I have, and that is, she keeps coming back to, we put a lot of money in
Right.
the house. Fine. That, however nicely you can say it, you have to say somehow that doesn't always translate. 'Cause it depends on what you
However,
put money into.
there are two things about that. Yes, you did, and these are the things that I think allow us to go to the 210 number versus the 190 something number.
Yeah.
We remember we took that into account when we came to this number. That's the first thing. Second thing is, and I wrote down in my notes, is market trend. If it went 190, 192, 210, right? Or let's say 190, 192, 198, 210, or whatever, and the market trend is up, the appraiser will take the trend into account as well if it's going down,
yeah.
right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Yes, you did put a lot, but remember, we've already added those things in when we listed the house. And again, with the appraiser, they're going to take a subject property, they're going to take 3 comparable properties, and they're going to plus and minus. This one has a deck, this one doesn't. So the one that doesn't is going to get a minus, versus a plus. yours has a 2-car garage, this only has 1-car garage, so you're gonna get a plus for an additional garage, right? And that's how we got to where we were in the first place. So that, yeah, that's great.
I had written down just, if it was in a vacuum, that what he did was too early. You talked about your safe islanding.
Right.
I did this training program years ago, but it was very good. And they talked about a submarine, like in their different compartments in the submarine, and you don't move to the second compartment until you've satisfied that you've addressed this one, then that gets shut off. So you kind of shouldn't have to get into a situation like he did where he was at the end and having to then go back
Right.
again. You can do it without being corny, but it's a little bit like, if we demonstrate that are you prepared to, if this is the price, are you prepared to go on? That's way before you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would he have done himself some, to me, he was very flat in how he presented it
Yeah.
too. He didn't say, hey, you've gotten a really strong offer here.
Yeah.
Let me show it to you, I'm very excited about it, or something like
Yeah.
that. He just said, here it is. And then
can you live with that?
can you live with that? Well, that's asking her to say no in a way.
Yeah, I think what you do in that situation is say, hey, here's the
I
good,
think he was very good, to be honest.
here's the good news.
You have an offer.
A written offer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's within the realm of where we were. And this doesn't have to be all end all. We got an opportunity to think about this and we can counter back. And one of the things that you didn't do, but technique I would use all the time is we can counter back and see what they say, because they can either reject that and come back to your price, or they could counter it. You do risk the chance that the buyer just walks away when you counter, but not if you're realistically countering, right? And if they are going to walk away, they're probably going to walk away for some other reason. They got nervous or whatever. So you much rather have them gone now than after a home inspection or whatever. But anyway, the point being is, don't get wrapped around the axle that it's not the price you wanted. Let's think about this, and let's think about what do we want to go back with so that we can get more of what you wanted versus, this. Because it's really interesting to me. There have been times where, and really smart people think when they get an offer, they have to accept it. If I don't take this, then they're not going to buy my house. No. We're going to counter this to a price that you're more comfortable with. And if they choose not to go at that price, well, then they weren't your right buyer anyway. But I want you to be realistic in what you counter back at. And let's look at what we came up with a list price, what they've offered you, and let's come up with something that, and here's another thing that I always tell people. Maybe it's not exactly what you wanted, but let me ask you a question. If this doesn't work out and your house stays on the market for 4 more months, would you have taken this number knowing that it was going to be 4 more months? And if it is, then that's your bottom line, not the one you think is your bottom line. The bottom line is, if let's just say an offer comes in at 300 and they wanted 315, right? And so they counter it. What you say to them is, let's counter back to something that if you don't get another offer for 3 months, you'd be comfortable with. They may say, well, shoot, if I don't get another offer in 3 or 4 months, I'm going to take this and walk away. Okay, fine. Or we can counter it 307 or 308, somewhere in the middle, make it realistic so that the other agent has the ability to explain why they might have come to that number. And if you get that, that's great. And if they come back at 305, then you make a decision as to whether or not.
Figure out, using that scenario, say 4 months. Let's say it's something, it costs you X in taxes and homeowners dues, that's a given.
Yep.
That's not even something we would
Right.
negotiate. So take that right out of the 315 and now drop it down to 312 or whatever.
Right,
that
exactly.
drops it to.
Yep.
Now you can say, really, in 4 months, you have to,
That's right.
Sure.
But I think the really important thing in this, and I don't think he did a great job of this, the really important thing is, hey, I'm here to give you the information you need to make an educated decision. It's your choice. It's your house. It's your price. But I'm here to give you what you need to make that decision, right? So that they never feel like you're trying to force them because you want a commission, right? You just want to be done with this, right? You always want to give them the information and say, hey, your decision at this point, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So.
Well, he talked about, and I don't know if he used the word pleasure, but that was another thing we learned, was the pain versus pleasure.
Yep.
And-
Discomfort. He used pain. I like the
Yeah.
word discomfort better.
Yeah.
What discomfort will it,
And,
will it?
and if you really work it, you can kind of determine whether a person is a pain avoider person or a pleasure seeking person. So, you know, to your point about the homeowner dues and all that stuff, if the pain person doesn't like to be in pain, that would hit them pretty hard.
Yep. Okay. You guys are going to answer these questions, not me. Because you guys are smarter than me.
Yeah, smarter pants.
How many responses can there be to an offer? 3 responses? Okay. And what are they? Anybody know?
You accept it, you can reject it, or you can counter it.
Okay. When presenting an offer to seller, you should not discuss terms or conditions that are not included in the contract.
Stay within the 4 corners.
Yeah. When sellers want to make an unrealistic counteroffer, ask questions to help them consider the price in the eyes of.
Informed buyer. Or A and B again. Maybe both. No,
What do you guys think?
price in the eyes of, he tried, his thing was trying to get her to see it in the eyes of the buyer. And then she appraised it.
Because the appraisers,
I don't know.
Well,
Ned, I feel like I'm American Got Talent. You're the deciding
You
vote.
wanna call that a?
can I call someone?
Yeah, you can call Lifeline.
You wanna call Michael?
Yeah.
The quick answer would be, I don't care what the appraiser is, except, you know, if you get an unrealistic high offer, I guess it won't appraise, but I'm gonna go with A.
Okay, A. I think you're right, but we're gonna go with A, 2 out of 3. The only reason I think you're right is because he did use both in the role play.
You
No,
know,
did he? Okay.
What a shame. Way to go, Logan.
But she's taken it before, come on now.
Yeah, that's right. She's graduating.
Oh, boy. All right, good stuff, thank you. Hey, just a couple, one, for no extra cost, just idea for you. And I've talked with you guys about this before, but what do these 2 things have in common in your mind? As a realtor getting started in the business, what do these 2 things have in common?
we're talking about Charlottesville, Central Virginia, and how it's grown from when, I haven't seen that before though,
Okay,
but
this is all Central Virginia sports.
Yeah, it's just a special
Special
edition.
section.
special, yeah.
Special.
When you look at these, what
Product.
jumps into your head as a realtor? I do know the answer to this question.
But this
Well,
one will cost more than that one.
This one will cost more than that one, that's
Is
right.
that a
That
hall,
one
I
came
can't
free
see,
to
is that a
people.
hall of fame
Fame.
for real estate? Or
No, no,
just-
for Charlottesville.
It's
Okay.
Charlottesville.
Chamber and the Progress do a Hall of Fame, and so there are 4 people that have been named to the Hall of Fame.
Yes, I looked at that the other day.
Okay, what's similar to these is these are both places that you should be looking in, seeing people that you know and writing them notes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so as an
I
example,
know some of it. They went way back.
Oh, yeah, I know,
Some
but-
guys that-
but the point
couple
being
of
is,
Boys wouldn't receive
yeah, unless
Receive the card.
you've got a lifeline. But as an example, and this was a pretty cool thing, I go through these things and I write notes to people that I know, congratulating them or whatever. Like this guy, Chuck Lewis,
Yeah.
his son, Charles Lewis, used to be a realtor in this office. He's gone to work with, he owns, you know where, what's it called? No, down on the, well, that too, but on the mall, what's
Oh,
that little place?
York Place.
York Place.
Yeah.
So Charles owns York Place and all the apartments
I had
in there.
no idea.
Right.
All
Super nice guy. And they do the Cavalier products. So he'll definitely get a note from me congratulating him on his dad, you know, posthumously. But then there's this section here. Black-owned Charlottesville, right?
Actually married to bakery.
So, yeah,
Marie
different.
Beth.
Marie Beth, I didn't know that. But
What was-
it,
what was- I didn't hear the.
Black-owned Charlottesville. So
Yeah.
Marie Beth, 2 of the owners of Marie Beth, one's an African-American.
Okay.
And I didn't know it was a gay couple either.
No, I've never
Not
been
that I
in
needed
there,
to
but
know,
it's good.
but, no, it's really good. It's really good. So you got Marie Beth. I don't really know them, but what a great way to, I'll write them a note congratulating them on their recognition in here. So just that Keith and Yona are in there a lot. And Mary Beth. This guy, Will Taylor, great guy, young guy. He owns the Chick-fil-A in the Fashion Square Mall.
Oh, yeah.
I've mentored him a little bit, helped him with some things. And so I took a picture of this and sent it to him via text yesterday. He had no idea it was in the magazine.
Are you kidding?
No, he was so fired up. He said, where did you find that? I said, man, you were in the Hall of Fame insert of the Daily
Right.
Progress. He said, you're kidding
He
me.
did it big time.
And he said, I had no idea. And obviously,
Right, and then,
yeah, North Carolina A&T, I think.
oh, was it?
And his mom, or he's married to a woman whose mom and husband live at Woodbury Forest. And she has been in development. But anyway, same thing with this. You go through this, and slowly but surely, you see kids that you know the parents. So you run into the kids. Hey, congratulations, saw you made, like for instance, David Callahan's granddaughter, Savannah, second team.
Star's son is there.
I don't know.
She runs physical therapy at ACA.
Well, there you go. Write a note, take a picture or whatever, just write a note. But this is just a great way of connecting with people. And they are so appreciative. Like, for instance, there was an agent here, you guys didn't know her because she left here before you guys came, Stephanie Schellenberger. And I'm doing my darndest to get Stephanie to come back here because her business hasn't gone the way, I don't think it's gone the way she wanted to go. But her son Connor is the #1 recruit for lacrosse in the country for the junior class.
Yeah.
And he got all sorts of recognition this past weekend in the Post. So I emailed both Scott and Stephanie over the weekend saying, boy, congratulations. Spring Creek, yeah.
Yeah,
But
he
he's
goes to Bullis.
a Bullis. He left St. Anne's and went to Bullis, had a great year there.
Mhm.
But anyway, the point being is, just, it's just an example of a place. I just keep these on my desk. When I have a few extra minutes, I just look through and I check off. So, because I have a tendency to forget who I wrote the notes to.
Sure.
So I go back through it, I check off, okay, yeah, I did write a note to that person, versus sending them the second one. But again, just a way of increasing your database. And especially when you send the things to the kids, the first person that usually gets it is the parent, right? And they say, hey, you got a note from John Green, right? And they read it. Look at this, mom. Look at this, mom. Yeah. Look at this, mom. This person, congratulations. So then they get it. And oftentimes it gets posted on the refrigerator or bulletin board or whatever. So anyway, just a reminder about, doing what you can do to increase your database by recognizing people and making them feel good. It's a huge, huge thing. So, all right. Anything else? Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Did you leave this out here?
I did not.
Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, because I was on the senior center board. Ollie
Used
does
to,
classes,
right?
does classes,
A friend
and
of mine just joined that board.
Christine,
Coleman?
she must have come on right after I left. I don't
Just
know
got
her.
to saw her.
Oh, from the gym.
Well, yeah, her husband owns Bavarian